Welcome back to Inside Story. I'm Ray Suarez. American Secretary of State John Kerry will soon be heading to Israel for scheduled meetings with the Netanyahu government. Kerry represents a U.S. government that still holds as official policy support for two states between the Jordan and the Mediterranean, Israel and a Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security. The two-state solution, nurtured at Oslo, kindled in the White House in meetings between Bill Clinton, Yitzhak Rabin, and Yasser Arafat, seems no closer today than it did almost a quarter century ago. Matt Duss, Dorgham Abu Salim, and Alex VanNess are with me in Washington. And Matt, let's continue. What's the assignment for Kerry when he comes down the steps in Ben Gurion?
I think, well, the immediate assignment is to, help stop this round of violence, to work with Palestinian leaders, Israeli leaders. The Jordanians, I think, have a role to play, given that a lot of this violence was originally centered on the Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif, over which the Jordanian monarchy traditionally has authority. But I think in the longer term, I don't think we're going to go back to negotiations, nor should we. I think these two, the Israeli and Palestinian leaders, are simply distrust each other so much that that's not realistic right now. But trying to set the table and
the American and Israeli leaders,
right,
too.
I think that's right. But I think in the longer term, trying to take steps that can arrest the decline of the status quo, preserving the two-state solution. And I think one important way of doing that is making clear to Israelis that they cannot have perpetual occupation and security at the same time. I think there are Israeli security leaders have made this clear. The former head of the Shin Bet, Ami Ayalon, wrote an op-ed making this point just earlier this week. So I think making clear to the Israelis, we continue to stand by you and support your legitimate security requirements, but we can no longer protect you from consequences such as sanctions and other steps that might be taken against the settlements.
Dorgham, is there a role for the United States? Does the Palestinian Authority trust the United States the way Israeli governments have traditionally?
Well, I don't suppose it's just a question of trust. One can observe that throughout years of engagement, the Palestinian Authority is above all keen on making there is no confrontation or rift between it and the United States government, not just regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but regarding plenty of other issues, including the aid that it receives from the U.S. government. But at the same time, one must also recognize that nearly 22 years of diplomacy and fluffy talk delivered absolutely nothing worthwhile for the Palestinians on the ground. The authority has been gravely challenged because of its failure in that regard. I mean, looking at the shuttle diplomacy conducted by John Kerry most recently, which is more shuttle diplomacy than we've seen in 10 years regarding this conflict, and it still didn't work. Now, in terms of warning the Israelis that they can't have perpetual occupation and security at the same time, well, I think that point has been made repeatedly over and over again. The issue here is that you do have a leader in Israel today, Benjamin Netanyahu, who simply ran on a simple platform. There will be no Palestinian state. That is what he assured his own constituents in videos that were leaked recently. This man is convinced of that goal. How exactly do you change that?
Alex VanNess, is it a question really of waiting till both the Netanyahu years are over and the Obama administration is left Washington?
No, I don't think it is. To play off what Dorgham just said, Netanyahu didn't mention that, but he mentioned that in regards to, in a context of, so long as the Palestinians are inciting their people to go to innocent Israelis and stab them on the street corners, there's not going to be a Palestinian state. You see the Fatah party advocating this. You see Hamas advocating these attacks. You saw them.
But he said there wasn't going to be a two-state solution back by around the general election when people weren't stabbing people on the street.
At that time, they were running them over with their cars, which was what they were advocating then. This is continuous incitement of violence on the side of the Palestinians that Netanyahu is a realist and realizes so long as that continues to exist, which is a violation of Oslo, so long as that continues to exist, there won't be a Palestinian state.
This is a conversation that has to continue, but thanks for being with us today. Dorgham Salim is a Palestinian who blogs at the Mondo Weiss site. Alex VanNess is the manager of public information at the Center for Security Policy, and Matt Duss is the president of the Foundation for Middle East Peace. I'll be back in a moment with a final thought on states and whether they come by ones or twos. Stay with us. It's Inside Story.